Okay, shalom. Excellent lesson ahead. From Yaakov to Israel, from life to life. This is an incredible numerical analysis that I'm going to have a look at. First of all, however, bring me on board. First of all, however, I just want to have to share something with you that's really important. This particular Torah took me to such elevated heights this Shabbat. I hope I can do it justice, because there's a real beauty in this particular Torah and this particular analysis that we're going to have a look at. It's going to be linked up to the opening of the Zohar and things like that. Some really profound, hidden, deep secrets in here. However, it's very simple. We've got to transition from Yaakov to Yisrael, from our imperfect state to our perfected state. Essentially, it's from life to life. I added that concept, from life to life, and I've just been listening to this wonderful rabbi, and he was talking about how Yaakov, when Abraham had his name changed, we don't refer to Abraham as Abraham after he had his name, Abram after he had his name changed, whereas Yaakov is still referred to as Yaakov even though he's had his name changed. Okay, and what's the reason behind this? And it's really very special Torah. I'd had a problem with this whole transition, this whole complete rectification, because I once looked at this picture of a Holocaust, these Holocaust victims who'd been murdered. This picture of a woman clutching a baby, a child, and I just thought to myself, even in your rectified state, even when we know where we're going to a place of rectification where all the darkness that we've ever experienced will be transformed to light, and all the evil to good. We're getting all the chaos into shalom, things like that. And we've got a process to go through. But I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm already partly there, because I just trust the whole process that we're in. I 100% know that is what Yod Hey Woah is doing in each and every one of us lives. So through faith we have already arrived. We can always say Gamzu Latova, this too will be for good, and there's part of us that's already at that place of complete rectification through the faith that we have in Yod Hey Woah. However, I had a problem, because I was thinking, well, when I look at this image of this mother and daughter that have been murdered by Nazis, this is always evil. This is always evil. So how can I reconcile that with the fact that, we've been perfected, and even through this evil that we've had to suffer and endure, to become Yisrael, to wrestle through the night with all the forces of Esav and all the false gods of Esav and all the darkness of exile. What's gonna happen to this image then? I was just gonna have to say, oh well, thank you for the experience, because it got me to where I am. And I that was something I struggled with. And like this Hamas, what we've got to be thankful for Hamas terrorists, because through their sheer hatred and evil, we become who we are. We become who we are because God made us who we are, and that was a test that these wicked people chose by their free choice to do, and somehow us, in our freedom to choose good, is able to overcome that evil. But it's still what we're supposed to say. Thank you for the experience. This is something that troubled me, because I could never ever reconcile the fact that something evil will always be evil, even though we have transformed that experience to good, and that has helped us become who we ultimately are destined to be, and that draws us closer to Yod Hey Woah. I have a problem when I'm looking at Holocaust photos, ever reaching a place where I can perceive that being anything less than pure utter evil, as likewise Hamas. And this week's Torah portion finally clarified that for me, because this rabbi said that Yaakov doesn't change his name. You see, the one who wrestles through the night, his name Yaakov remains in Torah. It moves to a secondary position once we've attained that level of Israel, but it's never fully nullified. Who we were when we had our heel bit during this whole process remains fully intact. And that whole necessity to stamp on the head of the serpent that bit us remains. And as long as our soul is within our body, there will always be a need to be like Yaakov. Because sometimes you have to be able to be like wise as serpents and innocent of doves. You've got to remain pure, but you have to deal with the reality in which we are living. And as long as we have a soul in our body, we will always have to be like Yaakov, able to contend with these forces, even, meeting them at their own level. Sometimes you have to be almost deceitful in order to make sure that you are preserved and this enemy is defeated. So I were really just to know that, and just to think that's Torah. We don't ever have to totally nullify who we were when we were getting our heel bit. Totally nullify that to who we who we ultimately will be, Yisrael. And this is a big comfort for me. So anyway, let's go and have however, the analysis into this is just incredible. The numbers behind this is unbelievable. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so I've got this here which says Yaakov is the Tofel, secondary name for Yisrael. So that just goes, this is taken from the Kli Yakar and on Parashah Vayishlach. Okay, it says Yaakov is not removed from Torah but remains secondary once rectification occurs. So what's got to be primary is the fact that we have defeated this evil once and for all. Okay, but you see, the evil that bit us remains evil always. That's the way that I interpret it. Because as long as we remain as Yaakov, the one who had to have his heel bit and the one who had to crush the head of the serpent, then our experience of that evil is validated, and the Torah itself proves that validation. And it's also linked to the concept of remembering the first Exodus and remembering the second Exodus. The second Exodus will be so great, i.e. the final redemption, where we have toiled in order to earn redemption, that the first, even though we remember the first Exodus, it will be secondary to our experiences of that second Exodus. But we'll still remember the first Exodus. So we've got this similarity between redemption, coming out of slavery, the first time we came out of slavery, and then the second time we'll come out of this Edomite exile as Bnei Yisrael. Okay, and this whole process of rectification, in a way, is greater than what was experienced even in the first Exodus, and that's similar to this this concept of Yaakov and Israel. That's what it's likened to in the Kli Yakar. Okay, so I just think that's wonderful. To me, it's just so wonderful because it allows us to cherish the whole process much more, because we know that it's never going to be nullified, because this is the Torah, this is what is written in the Torah, and the Torah is forever. It's a representation of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, and that is eternal and forever. So to me, this is just beautiful, because I know now that we're not going to be completely nullified by our elevated status. We will always remain connected to our identity as Yaakov. So to me, it's absolutely beautiful Torah. It's just beautiful Torah. Right, let's go and have a look at some numbers. So this is just a quick look, and we'll see how it's connected to the opening of the Zohar. Some really very profound numbers in all this, by the way. So this is the Tofel, which means secondary name for Israel. So Yaakov is the Tofel, but it's not completely eradicated. And this is to me, it's just so beautiful, because I was worried, about you sometimes you want to be elevated continuously, but it's hard to let go sometimes, even when it's something that is not such a nice experience, but it's still who you are. And this to me is like, well, yeah, we have to let go, we have to grow, we have to mature, but we also have to cherish that we once was. Okay, even though we've go through these incredible rectifications, but at the same time we've got to still have this rectified self take precedence over the unrectified self. Okay, let's go and have a look at this number first. Oops. Okay, so this is connected to the word, actually, toffel. One of the words that I believe that this is connected to are two name places found in 1 Deuteronomy 1 verse 1, and it mentions Tophel and Lavan. Okay, but these are places that there's no mention in it anywhere else in the Bible, so the sages have said these are mystery coded names. It's related to the bread that we didn't want to come down. It was related to the manna, the bread in the desert, according to Rashi. Okay, and one of the interpretations of Tophel was this word here, Tifalu, and one of the princes, and as one of the princes you will fall. So Tifalu. Okay. So it's very interesting that this is actually, the gematria is actually connected to this. The mispakadima of Tophel is 555, which 2 times that equals this, 1110. And this is Tophalu, which to me means to fall. Okay, and this is even very mystical. I'm going to actually do some analysis into this, or I've already done the analysis. I've been spending my time doing this. It's very, very fascinating because there's a lot of mysteries in this Psalm 82:7. But as you can see, it sounds a lot like Tophel. Tophel and Tophalu sound the same, and they're connected to this name called Tophel. This place name that is a coded message for some kind of rebellion that Bnei Yisrael had against the bread from heaven. Okay, and we've been outworking that really, haven't we? Because we've been toiling to reveal the bread from the earth instead, because we don't want things handed to us on a plate. We're up for this fight, and we're up for this battle. And we want to defeat all the forces of evil and transform them into good. We want to take the darkness and transform it into light. There's a part of us that is who we really are. We are Yisrael who struggles with these dark forces and subdues them and gets the blessing from them. Okay, so when you handed for the bread from heaven to you on a plate, what did they end up calling it? They ended up calling it the rotten bread, and they complained against the manna. But then it sent them on this journey of wandering, if you like, to rectify that. And that's connected to Tophalu, according to the commentaries. So even though that's interesting, and 156 is Yosef, and it's also Sion, an appellation of Yosef. So this is where it starts getting a bit mystical. And this is where it starts getting a little bit, interesting, because you've got this taken from the opening of the Zohar. This is the between the first word of Elohim and the second word of Elohim in the Torah. Okay, so you've got Bereshith bara Elohim. Et hashemayim wa et haaretz wa haaretz hayta tohu wa vohu wa choshech al pnei tahom wa ruach Elohim. Okay, at the end of there you would have a Elohim, and at the beginning you would have a Elohim. Let's see what the Zohar says about this mysterious 13 words. Okay, just to point out that the ordinal is exactly the same as a misbagadol for secondary. So it says, Rabbi Hizkiah opened, it is written, a rose among thorns from Song of Songs 2:2. What is the rose? This is the congregation of Israel. So we're trying to get to become Israel individually, but also collectively. And that includes the house of Yosef and the house of Yehuda. The house of Yehuda and the house of Yosef united together. It's not just Yehuda. Because there is a rose and there is a rose, because there is a rose and there is a rose. Just as the rose among the thorns is tinged with red and white, so is the congregation of Israel affected by the qualities of judgment and mercy. Just as the rose has 13 petals, the assembly of Israel is surrounded on all sides by the 13 attributes of mercy. So it's got within the letter of the Torah and the 13 attributes above the letter of the Torah, the letter of Keter. Thus, between the first mention of the name Elohim in the Torah, these 13 words surround and guard the congregation of Israel. So it's going to help us get to that place where we are the congregation of Israel. And these words are there to protect us. So there's a whole mystery in this. There's a whole mystery. And why is that then connected to these concepts that is related to the manna, and this that is related to Yaakov becoming secondary to Yisrael once we've attained that ascension? Okay, that rectification. It's all very beautiful and mystical. And it says, and after this, the name Elohim is written again in the text. And why is it mentioned again? In order to bring out the 5 rigid leaves that surround the rose. And these 5 represent the 5 gates of salvation. Those 5 leaves are the 5 aspects of the Mashiach that represent the name, the 5 aspects of the name of Yod Heh. The tip of the Yod, Mashiach ben Yosef, the Yod, the body of the Yod, Mashiach ben David. And then it's Yaakov, it's Moshe, Yaakov, and then Rachel, or Sarach bat Asher. It just depends for which aspect of faith we are working on correcting. Okay, when it comes to resurrection of the dead, it's Rachel. When it comes to the coming of Mashiach, which are the 2 aspects of faith that we need perfecting, it is Sarach bat Asher. That's the final letter here. The one that tells Yaakov od Yosef Chai. Okay, the one that's united with Moshe in the seeking out and the finding of the bones of Yosef. Okay, so they are the 5 strong leaves that surround the rose. The 5 represents the 5 gates of salvation. It's ultimately a revelation of the name of Yod Heh Wahweh. Okay, and this secret is written about in the verse, I will raise the cup of salvation. This is the cup of benediction which is raised after a meal. The cup of benediction rests on 5 fingers and no more, just as the rose rests on 5 rigid leaves. And this rose is the cup of benediction. From the 2nd to the 3rd mention of the name Elohim in the Torah, there are 5 words. From this point, the light was created. Hence, let there be light, and concealed and enclosed within the covenant that entered the rose and fructified it. Okay, so this is talking about this revelation of the light of the name of Yod Heh Wahweh that we get through the concept of Mashiach. Entering into the rose and fructifying it. This is referred to as a fruit tree bearing fruit after its kind, wherein is the seed thereof. So that's Genesis 1:11. The seed is the covenant, and that is the entire opening of the whole of the Zohar. So this is how the Zohar begins, talking about the rose that is a congregation of Israel. And as we can see, the entire opening of the Torah, Zohar, which represents the secret inner dimension of the Torah, is connected to this whole concept of secondary. And also this, and as one of the princes you will fall. And this is even talking about, when you go read the commentary, that this is the heavenly princes. So there's a lot of mystery involved in that. Very special. And then we've got this connection, which is very much connected to the recent teachings that have been done, the whole house of Hillel and Shammai, okay, of Chesed and Gevurah, of Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, and all the concepts. I mean, this is just vast. Even what I've just done in recent lessons regarding Shammai, Shimon ben Hillel, Shimon bar Yonah, Shimon Kefa, Shimon Petah Hamor. There's all kinds of different ways of looking at it. I've done a lot of teaching. I'm not going to go through that today, but as we can see, very, very powerfully connected up to this whole concept of secondary. Who's ultimately going to be secondary here? Shammai is secondary at this time. the whole of the halakha goes in accordance to the rulings of Hillel. But when Mashiach comes, that will change round, and the halakha will go in accordance to Shammai. Okay, so again, right now, Hillel is secondary. But once we've gone through that process of rectification and attained, we've revealed these 5 leaves around the rose because we now a congregation of Israel, united Israel, and individually can collectively Israel, and we've attained that rectification of wrestling with Satan through this, through this Edomite exile. We then have a change here, don't we? Hillel then becomes the Tophel, and Shammai becomes the first. Okay. Another interesting gematria is if you take Yaakov, which is 182, and then Yaakov rectified 5 times in Tanakh. Yaakov has got an extra vav in his name. I think 4 times in Jeremiah and once in Leviticus. Okay, when it's talking about the covenant with the land. So that's 5 times in total. So if you take Yaakov spelt normally, Yaakov with the additional vav, and then Yisrael, the name that it will be, it comes to 911. And 911 is Reshit, as in Bereshit, in the beginning. So the beginning is, the end is wedged in the beginning. You see how important Yaakov is. And in there is the first, but Yaakov will become secondary to Yisrael. Okay. So there's wonderful things to meditate on there as well. You will see this transformation, won't we? Yaakov rectified and Israel united together are the Reshit, connected to the whole concept of Reshit, Bereshit. For the sake of this correction, some say because of in Abraham, the heavens and the earth were created, but for the sake of Torah and for the sake of Israel, everything was created. Okay, so you've even got that correction, that connection there. So beautiful. This is attain to the second filling, the tree of life. We can see that that's connected 514 up to the square ordinal of secondary. So that's where we want to get to, don't we? We've been eating this tree of knowledge for a long time now, and we've been wrestling with all the influence that tree of knowledge generates within us, and at some point we will be rectified and attached back to the Eitz HaChaim that's currently we currently blocked from accessing in exile. So 514 is exactly the same. Once Yaakov becomes secondary to Yisrael, you see, this is where we get attached then to the Eitz HaChaim, isn't it? Again, there's a lot you can meditate on that. Ani Shalom, this is King David. So we know this is talking about the messianic reality. At this moment, he's dwelling in long as he dwelt in Kedar. Woe is me. I am for peace and they are for shalom. You should be saying this psalm daily, given the fact that Israel's at war. Psalm 120 and 121 is some of the psalms that we should be saying daily. But King David said, Ani shalom, I am shalom. King David is the power that brings, Yishmael to a place of shalom. He brings the nations to a place of shalom. He brings Asaph to a place of shalom. We've got to attach to the soul of Mashiach ben Dawid even now, because it says that the soul of King David, let me just read it. Okay, so this is Psalm 120. A song of ascents. In my distress I called to the Lord, and he answered me. O Lord, save my soul from false lips and a deceitful tongue. This is the whole game of Hamas and all these Palestinian propaganda. What can he give you, and what can he add to you, you deceitful tongue? So they committed the atrocities they did, and now they're trying to blame Jews for the consequences of their evil. Okay, sharpened arrows of a mighty man with coals of broom. This is a very vicious, lying tongue that's come against Israel. Sharpened arrows of a mighty man with coals of broom. This is rotten wood. This means a burn hotter than any other wood. Woe is to me, for I have sojourned in Meshech. I dwelt among the tents of Kedar. Okay, so you see, Kedar is the tribe which Muhammad came from. Okay, when King David is saying, I dwelt among the tents of Kedar, we have to understand that we can access, even though the soul of King David is the soul of Mashiach ben Dawid is trapped in this exile with us, along with the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef. We can access them. Okay, tells us where they are, so we know we're in this exile. In Kedar, he is in this exile with us. We can access him now. We're going to have to access the soul of Mashiach. We're going to have to access the soul of Moshe that's in Erev Rav exile. We're going to have to access the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef that is in Edomite exile, and we're going to have to access the soul of Mashiach ben Dawid that is trapped in Yishmaelite exile, trapped in the tents of Kedar. These were Yishmaelite tribes. For a long time my soul dwelt with those who hate peace. Hate. Got to transform the hate into love. Talked about that on the last the lesson that I did about the Ein Sof and the red potage is wonderful. This whole concept where we've got to take hate. It's like we don't get the light, we get the darkness, and we've got to transform it into the light. We don't get love. We get hate. We've got loads of hate, mega amounts of hate. Our job is to wrestle that hate and transform it from hate into love. Okay, hate between Yaakov and Leah, hate between Yaakov and Esau, hate between Joseph and Yehuda. There's a level of hate, and we've got to transform that. Do you know why? Because God is love. We've got to reveal that love through the 13 attributes of mercy, which are rooted only in love. You know, God is only love. He's only kind. He's only good. He's only forgiving. He's only merciful. He's only long-suffering. He's only gracious. Okay, and we've got to access him, not the concealment that we often call God, the punishment and the judgment. That comes about because we chose sin. And there's a consequence for that. We reap what we sow. But that's nothing to do with God. That's to do with our bad choices. I am at peace, but when I speak, they come to wage war. Okay, so Ani Shalom. We've got to be found to be at peace, connecting to the soul of Mashiach ben Dawid and completing this task of rectification where we transform our hate into love. Start first with the hate that we have got between Joseph and Yehuda. You know, this will help us then to overcome the hate between Yisrael and Yishmael. Okay, and then this it helps us to subdue. It helps us to become Yisrael. And at that level, even at Yisrael, there's then love between Yisrael and Leah. You know, the fact that she was a hated wife because she didn't marry Esau. She married Yaakov, but Yaakov, he didn't love her, he loved Rachel. But when Yaakov is subject to this rectification, where he's got to wrestle with Esau, who was the firstborn, like Leah was the firstborn, talked about this in my last video. You know, once he has subdued Esau, you know, and become Yisrael in the process, that's when he can love Leah, isn't it, the hated wife? So all this hate gets rectified eventually. Okay, let's go back. I talked about that on the last video that I did. It's a really good one, the one about the red potage and Ein Sof. Okay, so there we go, Ani Shalom. And also Pishon is the Pishon river that came out of Edom. It's the first river, and it represents the exile of Babylon. But it also represents the literal interpretation of the Torah, and the literal interpretation of the Torah is in an incredibly diminished state because it does not have the truth of the inner secrets of the Torah. And the Vilna Gaon said, without the secret inner meaning of the Torah, there is no literal interpretation of the Torah. So the literal interpretation of the Torah is in a very, very diminished status. She needs the truth. 446 is Emeth. No, it's Ha'emeth, the truth. Okay, Emeth is truth is 441. Ha'emeth is 446. Okay, so we need the truth to be inserted into the literal meaning of the Torah, and that truth is Od Yosef Chai. The whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, gathering in the lost of the house of Israel in accordance, Yod Heh Wawe, gathering in the lost of the house of Yosef in accordance to the Torah of Moshe. That is Ha'emeth, the truth. As we can see, that correction of this defective interpretation of the Torah is connected to Yaakov being secondary, and that's what we want to get to, don't we? We want to get to a place where we've attained Yisrael, so Yaakov is secondary to that. Okay, but not fully annihilated, not fully nullified, which is nice to know. So let's go and have a look at this then, where we were talking about the... Alright, so this is very interesting. This was in the commentary by Kli Yakar, where I got all the other stuff from. And it basically said, in this verse we've got an example of Yaakov and Yisrael. So from this is from Isaiah 44. It says, every valley shall be raised, and every mountain and hill shall be lowered, and the crooked terrain shall become a plain, and the close mountains a champaign. Okay, it means a plain. Okay, so here, however, we've got Wahaya Yaakov, like from the root word Yaakov, heel, Akov, Le Mishar, okay, which means it's the root word of Yisrael, Mishar. Okay, and it says, and the crooked terrain shall become a plain. Okay, so we go from Yaakov, which is crooked, because he was deceptive. He deceived Esav out of the birthright. He had to act like that until he gets his status as Israel. He's got to deal with the reality of Esav, who is this very powerful satanic force. You know, egotistical, self-centered, greedy, lustful, satanic force. Literally, guardian angel of Esav is Satan. So Yaakov has to deal with him in that way, and he had to deal with Lavan also. But it does become eventually Lemisha Yisrael. Okay, so this word is connected to Yaakov, and this is connected to Yisrael. This is what the Kli Yakar points out, and he points specifically to this verse. So Yaakov is secondary to where we get to. So we take the crooked terrain and it shall become a plain. Okay, so there's some wonderful gematria in this. Let's go and have a look. Straight away we've got a big problem. Why there was this... there's two things there really, isn't there? Just wait a minute. Okay, so the first one is connected to this number here, the Mispah Kadima. And it's an Israel loved Yosef more than all of his sons. So this caused a problem. This caused a problem with hate, didn't it? When there's hate between two brothers, then Satan has got dominion. We've got to transform that hate back into love. You know, we've got to start looking for reasons to advocate for each other. Christians have got to advocate for Jews. Jews have got to advocate for Christians. We've got to advocate for the lost house of Yosef that has been struggling, trapped in Roman Catholicism for 2,000 years, but struggling to bring rectify Esav, rectify the nations in that whole process. Okay, so I talked about that a lot. Don't need to go too much into details now. This number, however, 1,270, it will come up later, but that 127 is Yeshua filled out when Yeshua to the first filling, and it's the ordinal of that when the Vav is filled with a Yud. We will come across that later. This is another important number, 199. There's a unity between Moshe and Yisrael in that number. But just for this is connected to this. So this needs straightening out, doesn't it? Yisrael loved Yosef more than all of his brothers, so there's a lot of truth in that, because he was a son of his old age. Yosef is the one that Mashiach ben Yosef is the primary source of illumination that we have got, suffering in this exile with us to prevent us from falling into the 50th level of depravity, the 50th level of impurity, and also bearing our suffering for us. Okay, I've talked about that a lot. There's a lot of mystery involved in what exactly that means, but just to see there's a relationship between this and getting to this place. We will not accomplish rectification without Mashiach ben Yosef suffering in exile with us and bearing a burden of our illnesses and atoning for our sins by being in this exile with us suffering. Likewise Mashiach ben David, but primarily the suffering of Mashiach ben Yosef is in here guarding our souls against annihilation. So as bad as what it is that we've experienced in this wrestle with Esau, it would have been a whole lot more if Mashiach ben Yosef hadn't been in here with us. So and Israel loved Yosef more than all of his other sons. Why? Because who Yosef represents, Mashiach ben Yosef, is really ensuring that Yisrael is saved, Yisrael is regathered back in, and Yisrael is empowered to overcome Esau. So there's a lot of reason why Israel loves Yosef. Okay, until the break of dawn. So this is the break of dawn that Yaakov was wrestling with the angel of Esau until Ad Alot HaShahar. So the square ordinal of this is exactly the same as the square ordinal of the crooked terrain became a straight plane. You see when he got his name Yisrael? After he'd wrestled all night with Esau. Okay, it's beautiful gematria because you have commanding power with the angel of God. That's why it's called Yisrael. Ki sorita im Elohim, because he wrestled with God and won, prevailed. So it's got a regular of 1136, exactly the same as the triangular number of this. Again, it's pointing us to Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov wrestling with Esau to become Yisrael, wrestling with the gods of Esau to become Yisrael. Okay, all the house of Israel, the stick of Yosef. So that also comes to 1136, the exact same as this. The exact same as this, and then we've got that number, haven't we? 127. So what does the stick of Israel represent? It represents the name of Yod-Heh-Waw revealed above the letter of the Torah, written in the book of Micah. Wachol Beit Yisrael. This is specifically talking about the stick of Yosef. So 127, the ordinal of that is exactly the same as Yeshua, filled out when the Vav is filled with the Yud, which is at the level of Atziluth, the highest level of revelation of the Yeshua, the salvation, Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the title for Mashiach ben Yosef, and we can see 10 times this, it's up here. And Israel loved Joseph more than all of his sons, connected, and this connected to this, connected to this, connected. It's all wonderful. It's all perfect. Let's have a look what else we've got then. So this is quite incredible as well. We've got the 127 keep coming back again and again. Just wait a minute, let me colour it up. Okay, so I've just changed the colours so we can see more clearly that these are connected. I've spent literally years analysing different passages and different parts of text and different very significant messianic verses and things like that. So when I was looking at this, it doesn't take me all that long now to put the numbers together. I've just got to do a primary analysis of a particular verse to pick up these numbers. I won't have had them before, but all the other numbers, they're just from years of working to try to one line at a time, one verse at a time, but picking all the numbers up, and then You know, when you got a concept like this, when you're listening to Torah, then you can immediately do an analysis and put some brilliant numbers together to back up what was being said by the sages, to try and even understand at a deeper level what was said by the sages. So it's wonderful when you can take something like this that you've never come across before, but because you've done a lot of groundwork, you know, built up the resources, literally thousands and thousands of pages of analysis of various things to get the numbers of it. It's then nice to be able to put it all together and make sense out of it and see all these wonderful connections that you wouldn't have been able to see just from reading the text. You know, it really adds another dimension, the Gematria does. It's one of the interpretations of the Torah. You know, we talked about the Pishon river representing the literal. This is the Remez level. But it sort of connects it all together, doesn't it? You know, one level of interpreting the Torah, it sort of brings all the other levels of the interpreting the Torah, enhances them all. So 568, 2 times 568 is a 1136. And this is, I will set up from amongst them. Comes to 568. This is really quite important because it's Akim Lahem Mikerev. I will set up for them from amongst. This is Deuteronomy 18:18. This is talking about the prophet like Moshe. And we know that that is Shimon, but in this instance here we've got the Aleph Lamed Mim, and the Aleph Lam Mim is very much connected to Islam. This is why we know that Islam is even though it's in this horrific Ishmaelite exile, which is essentially Roman Catholicism, it would never admit it, but that is what it is at the root, and we're all stuck in this Edomite exile. But in 6 of the surahs within the Quran, it's just got these 3 letters that add it up. Aleph, Lam, Mim. Okay, Alif, Lam, Mim, which is the equivalent of Aleph, Lamed, Mem in Hebrew. In the first instance is Asher Lachach Min, that which was taken from Adam, because Islam was taken from the side of Adam. Adam represents the man, it represents Israel. It represents the name Yod-Heh-Wawi. That's why you find the name within Christianity, within Judaism and within Christianity, but not in Islam. Islam's the vessel. She was taken from the side of Adam. She came out of both Judaism and Christianity. She was essentially founded on Ebionite Jewish Christian beliefs. Okay, that's the origin of Islam. Christianity. it's Ebionite Essene Christianity. So that you've got the Aleph Lam Mim here, and this is why we know that Islam is connected to major Torah concepts. Okay, but right now everything's in unholiness. So sometimes because it's everything unholy is like a fruit that's protected with an outer evil shell. So we don't get access to the inner fruit. But like me, I've worked in Muslim schools and I've done a lot of work teaching children who were Muslims, you know, predominantly Muslim schools, like literally 100% Muslim schools, a school for Muslim girls, and then primary schools even, teaching maths, and then I was a private tutor, and the vast majority of the pupils that I taught were Muslim children. So when you're in that community, you experience that light and goodness. Okay, when you're on the outside of it looking in, you experience often the harsh, evil outer protective shell, and likewise Judaism. If you're on the outside of Judaism, you will see that outer harsh shell, likewise Christianity, because everything's garbed up in an outer shell until the inner fruit is mature to be able to come out of those evil shells. So it's connected to Islam basically, and it's connected to all this also. Guess what? We've got to wrestle with these outer evil shells eventually and subdue them with the power of the truth. Okay, Od Yosef Chai. It's Yisrael's got to be empowered with Od Yosef Chai up here. There's a reason why. All the truth about the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. and what that represents, a revelation of the absolute power and authority of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Wah. Again, here, look, we've got the 127. The 127. Okay, so very much connected to a revelation of Yeshua. And I'm just going to have to bring all these up. These are the unity of Mashiach and Moshe and Yeshua. So the revelation of the name within the letter of the Torah, the revelation of the name above the letter of the Torah, the lower face and the upper face, Tifereth and Keter, that he's uniting together. And these are the first fillings out of the names of Moshe and Yeshua at the various levels when the He and the Vav are filled differently. Okay. And if we add up all the values for Yeshua, it comes to 568. Okay, these are the ordinal values. So they come to 568, which is connected to all these. Okay, we need that upper face, and that upper face is exiled into the deepest, darkest aspects of Esav. Okay, and we need to go in and get them from there. And Yod-Heh-Wah did a work. He put the lost house of Yosef in those places, and through the illumination of this upper face to the lost house of Yosef, like in Edomite territory, they're able to wrestle with Esau from that place. But we can't see the full extent of the work that they've done, because you see it's all hidden by this outer evil shell. The spirit of Mashiach ben Dawid went into the tents of Kedar, Arab territory, and it's been doing a work through Islam to bring in the lost house of Yosef and others beside. Okay, and at some point it'll all be revealed, the absolute sovereignty of Yod-Heh-Wah. There'll be unity, there won't be any more hate, there'll be love. And then this also, so 284 is, and it's connected to Yonah as well. So if 284 is 2 times 284 equals 568. So 4 times 284 equals 1136. So 16 times Yonah equals this number here. And this is the ordinal for all the 5 books of Torah. We are not going to accomplish nothing that we've got to accomplish without the Torah. So all 5 books, that's our armour when we go against Esav 100%. We don't stand a chance without being totally and utterly connected to the Torah. Well, as we can see, the Torah is a sign of Yonah. It's part of the sign of Yonah. Okay, beautiful. And this is a phenomena. This is magnetism, because you've got 2 aspects to light, haven't you? Physical light I'm talking about. You've got magnetism, and then you've got electricity. So you've got this oscillating wave of magnetism and electricity, and I know a little bit about it because I go to the grave of the man who did the formula for light. It's very close to where I live. It's Dr. Clark Maxwell. And he's a very famous Scottish scientist, and he's buried locally, and I go to his grave often. And I studied science last year, actually, and physics, and this year I'm doing mathematics, a little bit more mathematics. Even though I'm a maths teacher, I'm just wanting to refresh everything again. So magnetism is connected, if you like, to light, the whole concept of light. There's 2 sides to it, and it would look in this instance, when we're looking at these numbers, that the magnetism was connected more to the power of Mashiach ben Yosef, the luminary that is the sun, whereas the moon, Mashiach ben Dawid, might be more connected to the whole concept of the chashmal, the electricity. I don't know, but it's definitely looking numbers-wise, magnetism would be connected to Mashiach ben Yosef much more, as we can see all these numbers. Okay, all very interesting stuff. And then we've got this, for Mashiach is the end, perfection, completion of the Torah. 1881 is exactly the same as the filling out at Atzilutoth, and the crooked terrain shall become a plain. or it shall become straight. Okay, and what does that mean? It means that the concept of the Mashiach, which is perfect, there's nothing that is not perfect, by the way. We're talking about a creation of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. There's nothing imperfect. Everything has got such an exalted, perfect status in truth. But in this world of lies, it looks like everything's a big balagan. That's about it. A big, whole chaotic mess. And we've got to transform. So the Mashiach is that rectification of our knowledge of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh back up so that we're only aware of his utter and absolute perfection. But that perfection is hidden in this chaos, in this darkness, in this filth, in depravity, in this satanic realm of lies, in this Edomite exile. And we literally have got to, we don't get that handed to us on a plate. That would be like the equivalent of the bread from heaven. No, we've got to toil to bring forth the bread from the earth. When we reveal the perfection of the concept of Mashiach, the 5 leaves that surround the 13 petal rose, when we understand that that is really a revelation of the power and authority of the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, that is the end of the perfection and completion of Torah. Because it reveals that there's only Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, nothing else beside him. A corrected concept of Mashiach is perfected da'ath. Our da'ath fell when we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so we've got to restore that. Okay? And there's loads of wonderful numbers in this here. But 1881 up here. Guess how we get to this? Guess how we get to the end? Well, we've got to wrestle. And these are the generations of Esau, that is Edom. We know a bit about that now, don't we? 1490 is 10 times 149. 149 is Melech Goyim, because Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh desires to be king over Israel and king of the nations. King over the body, king over the soul, king over heaven, king over earth, king over the light and the vessel united as one. Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh Elohim. Okay? Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh Shalom. 180 is David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. David, king of Israel, is alive and enduring. That's the ordinal of that. Okay, let's go and have a look at some more quickly. This is none other than the house of God. This was the rock that Yaakov was placed upon, wasn't it? Can't quite see where we're connected to now. Okay, right, so 789, I've not coloured it in. So I've just put this together today, but like I say, it's because of years of analysis of all these numbers, these precious numbers, and then you can start to understand things a little bit deeper. But 789 is exactly the same as the regular, of when the crooked terrain became a straight plain. This is none other than the house of God. When we get there, guess what? The house of prayer will be built for all nations. We will have that. We will have that level of honour and dignity. The kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. Absolutely wonderful. It's all associated with Mashiach ben Yosef. It's the ladder from heaven to earth, isn't it? We got the Torah given on the mountain Sinai, Moshe. That's the lower face. That's the revelation of the name within the letter of the Torah. The one at the top of the ladder that we've got to wrestle all the angels of exile. That's the upper face. That's the Sar HaPanim. Yeshua Sar HaPanim. Okay? That's the upper face that's revealed to us at the top of the ladder. And guess what? Eventually, when we got the upper, we reached the top of the mountain and we reached the top of the ladder. We unite those two revelations of his name together as one. This is none other than the house of God. And where was that? That's on Har Moriah. That's the place where the temple will be built. The third temple will be built. And it will be a house of prayer for all nations. And we will finally have that. Finally have that longed for shalom. Okay, so we can see how that's connected. Israel's got to get on and do its job. It's got to overcome all that hate. Create love. Reveal the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh. It's love. He loves humanity. He loves creation. He loves and longs to dwell with us below. Make him our priority. Make love a priority. Yaakov's life was 147 years, so that's that. And also 147 times 3 is emeth, truth. Okay, we've got to give truth to Yaakov, to empower him to continue that fight. And all the people of the land of the Hebrews, so this is from Jeremiah. Yodewah comes for the God for the Hebrews. Those people, Hebrew is synonymous with truthful people. People who are not going to lie. You know, we've seen a lot of lies and propaganda at this time. You've got to be truthful. That means we've got to be able to discern good from evil, you know, and not lie for the sake of lie. Okay? Yaakov eventually won't need to be deceived. When he's empowered with the truth, he's able to overcome Esau, and then guess what? It becomes Yisrael. You see, guess what? Then we get the house of God built where it should be built for all peoples. It's really the power of truth. It's being empowered with the truth to such a degree that Yaakov does not need to use deception anymore. He simply overcomes Esau with the power of the truth. He's empowered with the truth, and he overpowers Esau with the truth. Until he's got the truth, he can't overpower Esau. Esau represents the lie. You can only overcome the lie with the truth. You can only overcome the delusion with the truth. You know, that's how you overcome and subdue a lie to the side of that's how you transform the lie into or the lie or the concealment into a revelation. Can't keep it as it is. You can't overpower a lie with another lie. You know, it doesn't work that way. You've got to transform it, you've got to rectify it, overpower it. 168 is the square ordinal of David. Okay, so again, talking about messianic realities. And here we've got the square ordinal of Yaakov and the square ordinal of David. When David has not got the additional yud, here it's got the additional yud, is rectified David. Add these two together, 789, it's all connected. So there's got to be unity. Yaakov represents the name, David represents Islam, really. Yaakov represents Yehuda and Yosef together. David represents Islam, the vessel. This is Adam, this is Eve, the Malkuth, the Holy Kingdom, the Holy Shekinah. They need uniting together. And that is when we see all these things. Alright, going back to the land of the Hebrews, whenever Yod-Heh-Wah sent Moshe to go in to talk to Pharaoh, he says, he called him Lord God of the Hebrews has sent you. Excuse me. This is quite interesting. These are messianic figures, or very important figures from the Torah, that all died in a strange way, you know, and there's something strange about the death that gives them some sort of connection. There's 4 here. There's also another. There's a woman that's also connected to these, but it's the male side of it that is connected to all these. So Enoch, he was no more. Moshe, nobody knows where he's buried because he's buried in his defect. But we've got to reveal the fact that Moshe was perfect. The concept of Moshiach is perfect. Da'ath is perfect. Okay, Eliyahu went up to heaven without dying. He went up in the body. Korach was swallowed by the hole in the ground. All died a strange way. Okay, so if we add up the regulars for all these, it comes to 789. So we can see a connection here. There's some really profound teaching in that. It's all to do with Messiah. It's all to do with Messiah. Enoch's related to Mashiach ben Yosef, and then there's obviously Moshe. Eliyahu is the one who comes prior to the coming of Mashiach, and Korach's descendants was Shmuel, who anointed the kings of Israel. And also at the end there's a rectification with Korach. where he says Moshe is true and his Torah is true. This is a very profound reality. You know, there's a lot in it. You could talk about that for quite a lot. It's all messianic, and it's all to do with prophecy, and it's all to come with the heralding of the Mashiach. There's quite a lot in that. And then we've got this, which is can't see what it's connected to now. All right, the 856. I've not coloured it up as well as I normally do. Tahor, he is clean. Who is clean? Mashiach ben Yosef was put out the camp like a leper in the house of he was put into Rome outside the camp. Mashiach ben Yosef, and this light of the name of Yod Heh Wawi above the letter of the Torah descended there too. Okay, and he looks very treif and very unkosher, like Moshe, like Yosef, Trof Tref Yosef, surely Tony's Yosef. He appears like torn meat. It's the same word for treif meat. Torn, you don't have to eat it. It's unkosher. The whole concept of Yeshua, the whole concept of Mashiach ben Yosef, it appears very unkosher because he's descended into Rome. He's been put out the camp like a leper. It's for us to confirm. Tahor, who is clean. Okay. This square ordinal, by the way, the ordinal and the square ordinal of who both come to 52, which is the ordinal of Mashiach. So we can see this is connected to the atbash of this. That means when every letter is changed, so the aleph becomes a tav, and a beth becomes a shin, and a gimel would become a resh, things like that, the atbash system of the cipher. So under atbash, which is a highly messianic cipher, by the way, we can see that it's connected up here, and atbash is a cipher that's actually used within the Tanakh itself. We've got Tree of Yosef, Eitz Yosef. Okay, 386 is Yeshu. Okay, 82 is the ordinal of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben Dawid. So it's the misbagadol that's the same as the filled for this. Very interesting again. The whole is about the unity between the house of Yehud and the house of Yosef. This is quite interesting also. And a man who inflicts an injury upon his fellow man just as he. So the reason why this is like that is because those end letters spell Meron. And there was this horrible incident where there was recently, a couple of years ago, I think it were at Lag BaOmer, where there was a gathering of people, and there was a lot of people that died as a result. 45 people were crushed to death, and there was a lot of errors, shall we say. It shouldn't have happened, but anyway, it did happen. And this verse is related to that. I did some teachings on it. I don't know whether I've taken off, because I took about 200 of my videos off, so it might have been one that I took off, but I did do some teaching regarding that. But as we can see, this is connected up to here. Okay, there's a big connection with this as well. Again, we've got the 1270, haven't we? 127 is the Yeshua, and we've already had that number come up. It is the this is Meron, so the square letters, this is where the trampling happened, because Shimon bar Yochai is buried here, the writer of the Zohar, and every year on Lag BaOmer they celebrate his yahrzeit. So there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people gather, and that's why there was the trampling. It was you know, they say it was caused by the crowds, but really I think it was defective system that they had in place for managing that amount of people. But anyway, Meron, if we take the regular and ordinal plus the square ordinal of that, it comes to 1270, which is 10 times Yeshua filled at the level of Atziluth. But as well, if we take this number plus the Mispah Gadol number, comes to 2,300. This is connected to the 2,300 days mentioned in Daniel. I'm not going to go into that at this time, but it's very significant because this is very messianic, some of the things that are talked about. And I've showed previously how some of those numbers mentioned in Daniel are actually gematria. They must be pointing to gematria, and very messianic gematria, as well as other things. So if we take Shammai, who in my previous teachings I've shown, this is Shimon ben Hillel, who was Shimon Kefa, the holy Yeshu with the revelation of the name above the letter of the Torah, who was put into Rome. The Yeshua, okay, Moshiach ben Yosef. So if we add up the regular and the regular frame filled, the first filling, and the regular frame filled for the second filling, comes to 2,300. So we see a link between Shammai and Meron. And Meron, we can see, is connected up here to this through this number. Okay, and this is definitely connected to the 2,300 days spoken about in Daniel. Okay, there is a connection, a powerful connection, messianic connection, and this Shammai is fundamental and critical to a revelation of the Mashiach spoken about in the book of Daniel. And as we can see, it's also connected up to here. This whole process of Yaakov becoming Yisrael. And here is an important correction that we've got to get in order. And sexual desire will fail, and for man goes to his everlasting home. His Beit Olamo. We've got to overcome our lower base desires. This here, Ha'avyona, I think it's connected to Yona. We've got a corrupted sexual desire. A Yona, a dove, is a sign of the dove. It's really sexual purity, like Moshiach ben Yosef connected to the sexual purity of Yosef. It's also connected to a rectification of Yesod, isn't it? The foundation of the whole world, which in a way is connected to the concept of the male anatomy. Okay, it just needs properly circumcising. So all these things can be corrected, and perfected, and then where do we get to once we've done that? Once we've corrected, once we've healed, this word here, where tofer will fail, it can be an anagram for true for, which means healing. It's connected to healing anyway. So it can be that we have that side of us healed. I can't quite, just let me have a look at it. Okay, so I've just highlighted it though. If you take those letters, it can mean healing, trufa, healing as in healing leaves. So healing of our sexual desire. Okay, and that word of Yona can be split up to father of the dove. So we've got to be like doves really in this matter. And Esav causes a lot of corruption in that area, doesn't it? Our satanic lusts and perversion and filth can be a big part of this battle, a big part of this wrestle, a big part when we're getting tempted night and day, and especially when everywhere you look, you just get flooded full of all kinds of perversion. We need to be healed from that influence. We've got it wrong. There's a perfect state that's desirable. This is part of our battle for us to become for us to overwhelm Esav and become Yisrael. Okay, there will always be temptation. We need healing. We simply need healing from this perversion. Not easy. It's definitely not easy, and not when there's a lot of abuse and a lot of all kinds of paedophilia, and it just goes on and on. All kinds of pornography. And especially like for me, for example, I was 27 years old before I became a believer. By the time you get to 27, there's a lot of filth that's gone on in your life prior to that. Prior you've got to return from a real place of exile, haven't you? some things you need healing from. Okay, so then we've got this. The Gemara provides a mnemonic for the biblical figures cited in the course of the discussion that follows. Okay, so this is just taken from Makoth 24a2. Very interesting part of the Talmud, by the way. But this is where it highlights to me the initial letters, because it says there's a sign, Simon of Daleth Mem, Shin Mem, Kof Samech, Kof, and these represent David, Micah, Isaiah, Amos, Habakkuk, Amos, and Ezekiel. So in this particular section of the Talmud, it goes through all these prophets and David, and it's got this strange code for it, for all these. You'd have to go read it. Obviously there's a lot of context involved with it. It's sometimes you've got to figure out, well, why did they use that letter and not the initial letter? Sometimes it's used the initial letter, like David, Micah, Isaiah it didn't use the initial letter, Amos it didn't, Habakkuk it didn't, Amos it didn't again, and Ezekiel didn't. It only used the initial letters for the Daleth, and the Mem represented David and Micah. Okay, all the other prophets that came were represented by letters from within the name. So what's that telling you? Well, Micah is very important, because in Micah is the revelation of the upper face of Yod He Wawit, and David's important because he takes that upper face, the top of the ladder and the top of the mountain from Moshe, unites them together as one. Okay, so there's even hints at that. The square ordinal of that is 1742. Added to the ordinal of it, 104 comes to 1846. So we see there's even a connection there between this and this mysterious mnemonic used in the Talmud. Okay, last page. Let's have a look at this, because there's some really wonderful gematria in here as well. So you shall not extinguish the lamp of Israel. This is David, who's the lamp of Israel. Here again we've got David Melech Israel Chai Wakayam. David, king of Israel, is alive and enduring, so that you not extinguish the lamp, was taken off the battlefield. You see, once you attain the level of King David, you're so precious. Attaining the level of King David, the lamp of Israel, because when we attach to his soul, we're taken off the battlefield just to preserve us. So I think that's a very good level to be attached to. We need to be thinking about that unity between Yehuda and Yosef, because that's what King David does. And, the raising up the fallen booth of David, which is connected to Mashiach ben Yosef. This is a good thing to be taken off the battlefield, because we're in the fiercest part of the battle now. If we can attain this level of David, this is the way I look at it. If we can attain the level of the lamp of Israel, we're going to be taken off the battlefield early. We're not going to have to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortunes. We've served our time, thanks, we're off. If you get to the level of King David, you'll be very lucky in this world of lies. You're going to have to battle with a lot of Aesop before you get there. To get to that stage, I think you've got to go up against quite a lot of forces of evil. You've earned your right to get off that battlefield, but you get to the stage of David, you become a lamp of Israel, able to contain both the upper lights, the light of the name within the Torah and the light above the Torah. You're doing well. Keep going, and try and let us all know how you've got there. So the square ordinal of that, we know which one are we looking at now. Okay, so I've not coded these up properly. I've not really had a look long enough. The regular and ordinal added together come to 1836, which is exactly the same as the filled at the level of Yetzirah to this. So it's absolutely wonderful. Right, we've got another 1836, of whom we had said, under his protection we shall live among the nations. So this is talking about, if you go to Lamentations 4:20, highly messianic verse, it's talking about the Mashiach, the anointed of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, because he's under his protection we shall live among the nations. This is Mashiach ben Yosef, this is Shimon ben Hillel, this is Shimon Kefa, this is the Yeshua, this is the upper face. Under his protection we shall live among the nations, because you know what, without that protection, we think it's hard what we've had to go up against. Without that protection it would have been a whole lot worse. Okay, so 1,836, exactly the same as this. Just going to have to ignore the numbers. I haven't coloured it up as well as I normally do. Then again we've got the tree of life. We got the regular and the mispagadol added together for Etz HaChaim. This is the level that we want to get to, isn't it? The tree of life we want to be able to attain. It's only possible because we've been under the protection of the one we shall live among the nations, the Moshiach of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. 836. I've done this in previous teachings, so I can't bring everything up in one teaching. You've got to go do a little bit your own work, look all these up yourself and get some context. You know, that's the way you've got to do it. I can't possibly put every single verse up because it would just take too much time. So Etz HaChaim, the mispagadol and the regular added together 1,836, connected to this. It's a tree of life that protects us. It's a revelation of the name of the upper face. That's our true protection, isn't it? Because through that revelation we are then able to imitate that name. And then these good thoughts, good words, good deeds, they protect the whole of humanity to a certain degree. This is Yisrael, imitating the name as it's been revealed to them. To the lost house of Yusuf we had the upper face revealed. To the house of Yehuda they had the lower face through Moshe. But it's all in exile. All these good deeds are trapped in the belly of the serpent, which is the Roman Catholic Vatican Church. We got to get out of exile, all this good, bring it over to the side of holy. Get that house of God built on account of it all. End exile on account of it all. Rectify ourselves from Yaakov to Yisrael on account of it all. Reveal the truth. Okay. And then talked about the upper face and the lower face, Keter and Tefereth. So if we take the regular and ordinal, add them together, and that one there is the ordinal of Yeshua. And it's also the ordinal of Yaakov rectified when he's got the additional vav. We've got 673 if we had the regular and ordinal for Tifereth, and that there is the ordinal of Mashiach ben Dawid. Okay, unites them together, doesn't it? We can see here, Keter, this is connected to the tree of life. This is the name of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, like what I've been saying, the upper face and the lower face, to unite them together, because together united they become the tree of life. Okay, and then we can see also this is doubly connected to the tree of life. The unity of Keter and Tifereth, doubly connected to the concept of the tree of life. This is when we access the tree of life through that unity. And also we accomplish this rectification where the crooked terrain becomes a plain. We want to get there, don't we? Then we've got this, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Our God, okay. Wayoma Elohim, our God. That is actually plural for gods, but he says, Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh is our God. Okay, so what appears to be multiple forces, just as Pharaoh knew God, but he doesn't know Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. Lots of us can know God. God is our, it's how we perceive God whilst we are in physical creation, isn't it? But we are told our God is Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. So when it says when we are made in the image of God, our God, Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh, is our Eloheinu, so we are made in the image of Yod-Heh-Waw-Heh. We are made to imitate his name. the lower face and the upper face of his name in thought, word and deed. Okay? And when we do that, we can start to overcome all these forces of evil. We are being true to ourselves. We are expressing our true potential when we do that. And then, whereas lie got a chance to stand in the face of true, our true nature, how we're truly meant to be. But we can't be that without being empowered with the truth, and that's connected again to Yosef, because that is the upper face. 1863, we can see it's Bria. You shall give truth to Yaakov is connected to, don't know why I've put this one on. Must have been connected to something, maybe. Oh right, it's to do with I know what it is. 1863 is 9 times 207. Okay, 9 times 207. This is 8 times 207. So it's connected to the light. This here is 9 times 207, 9 times R. Okay, so give truth to Yaakov, the regular and the ordinal added together, and I've talked about this a lot, this 153, I'm not going to go through it in this lesson, but if we add them together, 8 times 207, 8 times R, 8 times light, give truth to Yaakov, empower Yaakov with the truth so he can overpower Esav the liar, rectify him. And I make sackcloth their raiment. I did a teaching on this recently. This is an anagram of Shammai. Okay. And as we can see, it's got a mispar kadima of 4,999, 6 times 833, which is Yeshua. So it's connected to the concept of Yeshua, the upper face, the Keter, the crown of Adam. But as we can see, when we fill it out for all the different worlds, Asiya, Yetzirah, Beriah, Atziluth, it comes to 4 times 1863, connected to this fire or light, connected directly to this, and connected to this. And we know that this is connected to the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef. I make sackcloth their raiment. This is all hidden. Okay. Yotewah hid this light in the Edomite exile until he's completed everything that he has needed to complete with the power of that light, i.e. the entire rectification of Israel from Yaakov that gets his heel bit hard up to Yisrael. And then you see that experience of Yaakov will be secondary, but not annihilated. We're in law, so I've just done some recent teachings about Daniel and the Mashiach of Daniel. This was what I analysed for that. The Atbash of that 1863 is again connected. So this, he was cut off, talking about the Kereit Moshiach. The Mashiach was cut off, but not for himself. Or it can mean, and was no more. Okay, so it's worthy of it's as we can see, it's connected to here. Why was he cut off then? Well, not for himself. Who for then? The lost house of Yosef. He was cut off for the lost house of Yosef. So Yitzhak could be perfected. So that hate could be overwhelmed. Okay, the division and the hate. Nesgadol Hayasham, a great miracle happened there in exile. Okay, I went through that the lessons that I did on Daniel, so I'm not going to go through that again. And this is connected also to the serpent. We've got Nechash, comes to 358, exactly the same as Mashiach. Nechash filled out comes to 884. Add those two together, 1242. 2 times 621, or 6 times R. Okay, so connected to all these. And then we've got Sinai. Okay, so we've got Mashiach ben Yosef getting us up the ladder. And then we've got Moshe, haven't we, in exile, in Erev exile, pushing us to the top of the mountain, to reveal that face that is uniting together under King David. Okay, so we've got the Mashiach that was cut off but not for himself to go into the lost house of Joseph within Edomite and Ishmaelite territories. And then we've got Moshe trying to push the Bnei Yehuda up the top of the mountain, get as high as you can within the letter of the Torah to reveal my name. And they've done a great job with the Jewish people. They have absolutely been a light to us all. I've learnt pretty much everything that I've learnt from Jewish people, you know. So yes, there is a nasty outer husk. There is a nasty outer husk, but it serves a purpose because they've needed to keep separate, because the Jewish people are the ones that have kept the torch of the name as revealed in the Torah alive. They are the ones that have pushed themselves to the top of the mountain, okay, to gain that revelation of his name within the letter of the Torah. So there's ones, not everybody's attained that, but you've got to class them as one people. Likewise in Christianity, there's only maybe some that get to the top of the ladder. It doesn't matter because we're all connected. Okay, and where one gets, we all get. It's like the lulav, isn't it? You know, even included within the most righteous is the most wicked of the community. So likewise, and the same applies for Islam. You know, you've got to include the wicked, unfortunately, with the righteous, but they get a different treatment, don't they? Because on Rosh Hashanah you're whipping that willow that signifies the wicked on the ground, and it rightfully so. And I think that should be it. So with that, I will say shalom. Please subscribe and share. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Shalom.